Now, and this is the important part. Why am I so fired up about Oklahoma State? It's for two big reasons. This has two major ramifications across the bow in college basketball. When I talk about earth-shattering, I mean earth-shattering. And so what's the first one? The first one pertains to this season specifically. It pertains specifically to a young man named Cade Cunningham. And I would assume that anybody listening to this show who likes AT, who wants to download a show like this, would probably know who Cade Cunningham is. But for people who don't, he was the number one high school player in America this year. And a guy who is actually headed to Oklahoma State, chose Oklahoma State over Kentucky and North Carolina. Obvious question, why did he choose Oklahoma State over North Carolina and Kentucky? Well, his brother is on staff there. We can save the argument for another day of whether he would have gone somewhere else if his brother wasn't on staff. But the point remains, the number one high school player in America is either at Oklahoma State as we speak or was set to go to campus there. And his one season in college basketball just got whooshed away, barring some incredible appeal that I think would be relatively unprecedented. I don't think the NCAA has ever overturned its own decision. But this is huge. And let me tell you why. So to even backtrack a little bit, I should mention this with Cade Cunningham. I tell you this all the time. All five-star recruits are not created equal. I had a major college coach, a major assistant coach tell me this one time. I've said it on this podcast many times. Aaron, even within McDonald's All-Americans, there are different tiers. And the quote that he used, which stayed with me forever, when you go to McDonald's, you can order a Big Mac. You can also order a dollar menu. You get the dollar cheeseburger and you get the Big Mac, both of them at McDonald's. And what is the analogy there? It's that when it comes to high school basketball recruits, even within the elite of the elite, there are the Big Macs, the Zion Williamsons, the Anthony Davises, the RJ Barretts, the John Walls. Then there are the guys that are like, they're the dollar cheeseburgers. And maybe they develop into a 2-3 year college star. Maybe they don't develop at all. Maybe they go pro before they're ready. But I bring all this up to say, Cade Cunningham is about the biggest Big Mac that I've ever seen. And what do I mean by that? Cade Cunningham is one of the most gifted high school players that I have ever seen covering this sport. I have seen basically every high school player of relevance in high school since about 2013, 2014. And there are only two guys that I ever remember. The first time I walked in the gym, I said, that to me looks like a number one overall draft pick. The first one was Ben Simmons, who I saw at the Nike Skills Academy in Los Angeles prior to his freshman year at LSU. He was on the court with a bunch of NBA players and was the second best player on the court besides James Harden, significantly better than everybody in college that year. And the second one is Cade Cunningham. And Cade Cunningham, I was so looking forward to seeing him play college basketball this year. And now I really do think that, I think it's pretty common knowledge if you follow this story from Friday to Monday morning, I think it's pretty realistic that he probably won't play college basketball. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that with Oklahoma State out of the NCAA tournament right now, barring an appeal, that kid, his family, have a really, really, really tough decision to make. That decision, of course, is, do I stay at Oklahoma State because my brother's here, because this is our one last year to kind of be boys before we go our separate ways? Do I stay here hoping that there's an appeal? Because I got options. I came to Oklahoma State in part because of my brother, in part because I want to play college basketball, but I got other options. One, he could transfer to another school. I just don't see that happening. I don't see him leaving another school. I will say this, though. Kentucky was the number 2 choice. And if he went to another school, if he went to Kentucky, that would be the consensus preseason number 1 team. And if they got Olivier Sarr eligible, I think that's the overwhelming national championship favorite. I said this when Cade Cunningham took his official visit to Kentucky. They already had Terrence Clark and B.J. Boston committed. I said if Cade Cunningham goes there, I will put the talent in that top 3 right up there with Zion, RJ Barrett, and Cam Reddish. Don't know if all 3 of those guys will end up as top 10 picks, but I would put that talent right up there with anybody. I don't think Cade Cunningham will choose another college option, though. I think realistically, he's going to sit there and say, look, Jalen Green just made $500,000 going to the G League to basically train for a year and get ready for the NBA. Jeff Goodman reported that Cade Cunningham had a very similar offer to join the program and turned it down and go play with his brother at Oklahoma State. There's also the overseas option where you can actually play games. And I think Cade Cunningham has a really tough decision to make. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say what I think he should do. Listen, selfishly, I want him to play college basketball. He is a great player. And I would add this, an incredible kid, just total salt of the earth, class. I've interviewed him a couple times one-on-one. I'm talking the nicest kid on the planet, so well put together, so polished. I wanted him in college basketball next year because I thought that he would be an incredible ambassador for the sport. A guy that wants to be in college, a guy that's a star, and a guy that I believe is eventually going to be the number one pick in next year's draft. And this is why I freaked out on Friday afternoon, and I'm sorry for those of you who saw me in full AT freakout mode, but this is a really important moment in time in college basketball, and let me tell you why. If Cade Cunningham chooses this G League option, I think it could be essentially a death knell for college basketball ever getting truly elite talent on the college campus again. Let me explain why. Had Cade Cunningham been able to play at Oklahoma State, had he been able to play in the NCAA tournament, I believe that he was good enough to elevate Oklahoma State. This wasn't going to be Anthony Edwards at Georgia. It wasn't going to be Markelle Fultz at Washington. It wasn't going to be Ben Simmons at LSU. I believe this guy with the talent around him would have gotten to the NCAA tournament and become really one of the faces of college basketball. And I believe he would have been the number one pick in next year's draft. And he would have been the number one pick. And what would have happened was college basketball, in a time where every player is looking for the shortest route to the pros, they would have had something to hang their hat on, right? R.J. Hampton goes overseas. James Wiseman quits midseason. Jalen Green is going to the G League. And Cade Cunningham was going to come to college and I believe would have ended up as the number one pick in the draft. But if he goes to the G League, I think you're talking about for sure the top two picks in the draft, Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham, in either order. And then on Sunday afternoon, Jonathan Kuminga, who was the number one junior in the country, reclassified, graduated from high school. Now he is coming into the class of 2020, and all reports and everything that I've heard is that he will take a professional path as well. And so you're talking about now potentially the top three picks in the NBA draft next season, all coming through one of these professional path programs, whether it is the college level, whether it is in Australia, overseas, or more likely in the G League. And if you get the top three picks out of this program, why does any other elite kid ever want to go to college? You mean to tell me I don't have to go to class, I don't have to go to school, I can practice as much as I want, I can make good money? I'm going to take that option every time because it's a path that will be proven to get you to pro basketball, get you to the best of the best in the NBA. If we get the top three picks or 3 out of the top 4 picks or 3 out of the top 5 picks, it's going to happen. And so I thought that while, yes, you have to punish Oklahoma State, I'm not saying that you're not. I think it's incredibly tone-deaf by the NCAA, and it drives me crazy. And this is what I freaked out about the other day, that they're essentially pushing Cade Cunningham out of college basketball. And for the second year in a row, they're pushing out maybe the most marketable player in the sport. Last year, it was James Wiseman. Listen, you can criticize James Wiseman for quitting his team midseason, all that stuff, but never forget, he came into that season having no idea that his mother took money from Penny Hardaway years ago, and that's why they moved to Memphis. James Wiseman didn't know. His mom worked that out privately with Penny Hardaway. Never forget the NCAA cleared James Wiseman. There were issues with James Wiseman. They let him play, and then they come back 6 months later and say, you know what, we kind of heard some stuff, and we're going to have to check into this, and you know what, Penny Hardaway was a booster. Say what you want about James Wiseman. He wanted to play college basketball. Then on top of that, after they cleared him and retroactively made him ineligible, they gave him a 13-game suspension. And I know you can blame James Wiseman some. You can blame Memphis, the adults around him, for actually playing James Wiseman when they should have sat him. But the NCAA still could have shown some, what's the right word? Could have they didn't have to do what they did, right? Every report that you saw from coming out of Memphis was that James Wiseman sat out because he believed that he would end up with a 6-game suspension. And those reports don't come out if there wasn't some kind of communication between Indianapolis, between Memphis, that basically said, look, if you do what we want, we are going to take care of you. We promise we're not going to crush you. And then they crushed him. James Wiseman wanted to play college basketball. When you tell him to sit out 13 games, which is the third of the season, he just said, screw it. Some agent's going to pay me to go train. I'm going to go train. And now fast forward to this Cade Cunningham. I'm telling you, this could be, I'm not trying to be exaggerating or facetious. This could be the death knell of college basketball. Because if the top 3 picks all come out of this program, everybody in amateur basketball is looking at this program to see how it works. And if they get the top 3 picks out of there, man, I don't know why Imani Bates wants to go to college. I don't know why Mikey Williams, the number 1 freshman in America, wants to go to college, why Bronny James wants to go to I don't know why any of these guys would want to go to college. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm recording here about 6, 7 o'clock on Sunday night. As of Sunday night, there's really no major update on Cade Cunningham. And I don't think Cade Cunningham knows what he wants to do because I think he was blindsided like everybody else. It will be fascinating to watch, though. Selfishly, I do hope we get to see him play college basketball. I think it would be surreal if we got to see him play college basketball at Kentucky because that would just be the super team to end all super teams. But I think it's realistic. He's probably going to take a pro path. It's really hard to turn down that money. And I think the NCAA from now until the end of time will really kick themselves for it. I should